Chris. And here is more from the Washington Post poll we mentioned a few moments ago. The latest Washington Post ABC News Ipsos poll finds that 2/3 of U.S. adults want President Biden to step aside and let someone else run. 56% of Democrats say President Biden should end his candidacy, while 42% say he should continue to seek re-election. That same poll finds Biden and former President Donald Trump in a dead heat, with both candidates receiving 46% support nationally among registered voters. Yeah. I'm going to just tee you up there, Joe.
Well, I just say, Willie, I mean, let's again look at really the main takeaways here. One, like other polls, not all polls, but there have been several polls that have shown very little slippage for Joe Biden since that debate. In fact, the New York Times Siena poll, which is usually one of the most negative result-oriented polls for Joe Biden, actually showed Biden picking up among independent voters, even though he's, I think, down 6. This Washington Post poll shows 2/3 of Americans think Joe Biden should get out of the race because he's too old, and yet he is tied with Donald Trump, 46% to 46%. And the question for those Democrats who seriously in their heart believe, as we've talked about before, that Joe Biden is too old. He needs to step aside and let somebody younger run who can beat Donald Trump. How do you push somebody out of the White House who won the primary, every primary contest, 90% of the votes, 90% of the delegates, and is a couple of days away from being voted, I think online, a couple of days away of being voted the party's nominee, especially when you have a poll that shows he's dead even, and other polls that show he does better than any other Democrat lined up against Donald Trump.
It's an extraordinary moment, and this poll really puts that into relief, that the race nationally is tied after all we've been talking about fully for 2 weeks now. We're 2 weeks out from that debate where Joe Biden performed so poorly and has been scrambling to kind of keep everything together since then, keep his party together, keep his support together. 46-46 nationally. We will say again, some of the battleground state polls, the ones that really matter, have seen Donald Trump increase his margins there a bit since the debate, but most of those still are within the margin of error. But you're right, 46% of Democrats say he should get out of the race. 67% of adults in this new poll say he should get out of the race. But it's still, those numbers you're looking at are the same numbers we saw since April. I would point out that in this poll, Joe Biden's approval rating among all voters and among Democrats, exactly where it was in April. He's still the guy they believe that if he does decide to stay in the race, 92% again of Democrats say they will support him in this new poll. So, Chris Matthews, with all of that as a backdrop, fascinated to hear your thoughts about this moment, where we are, whether this president should move forward, whether he should step aside and open the door to the great unknown for Democrats. Many Democrats appear willing to take that risk and see what's behind the door. What do you think?
Well, I think we have to look at all the facts, and one of the facts is Joe Biden. He's a fact. This guy has earned his way to this position in life, United States president. He got here the long way. In 1972, he ran against Caleb Boggs, a 3-term congressman, a 2-term governor, a 2-term U.S. senator, and he beat him. He beat him well. And he rode around in a car the next day and was celebrated for having pulled that upset because he put out no television in Wilmington or Delaware. He put out literature the weekend before delivered by volunteers, which was a brilliant piece of literature. John Martilla did it. He is a politician who's been good at it. He's been reelected every time since then in Delaware with pretty healthy majorities. In life, he lost his wife and he lost his daughter, and he found Jill. Now, who's he going to listen to, Jill or George Clooney? I'm telling you, it's personal. He's had the elite, and it's so true about the elite. He is absolutely right about the elite. Look at President Obama. He served for 8 years loyally, and yet Obama backed Hillary Clinton for president and didn't back him. But I hear he never even invited him upstairs. He had a good reason to be resentful, but he isn't. He puts up with it with the elite. But right now, he's got the poor people. He's got minorities. He's got Hispanics. He's going to put out the, labor. He's going to hold that base of the Democratic Party, which he will need in November. And I'm telling you, people are going to end up rooting for him in October because he will have a comeback. And in this elite-fashioned attack on him, they're going to pay for it. But in the end, they're going to end up voting for him. So I think Biden will be the little guy. He'll be the Democrat in this race, the true Democrat. And he's going to get people to turn for him in October. It's going to be stunning. He is not quitting. He is not built to quit. That's what I think. And I think it's the most important thing we're going to resolve here by tonight. I hope he's prepared to face the press. The press will not be easy on him. They've been kept from him. The New York Times editorial board never got to interview him before they came out against him. Philadelphia Inquirer the same way. He has not been available to the press. The people around him who come up this lunchtime to meet with the senators have to explain that. They have to explain why they have kept him in a witness protection program for all these months. Why haven't they let the press meet with him? Why do they keep turning down interviews? Why do they have to prepare for days to meet with Lester Holt on Monday? Why don't they just come up to the Hill? Why doesn't he just come up to the Hill and meet with the senators? You're up there, I'll be there in a half hour. Oh, I'll be there in 10 minutes. Just get it over with. Meet with them because they've kept them from meeting with him. And I think this is a real question they're going to have to answer. That would be Mike Donilon and Steve Ricchetti and Dylan. All three of them have to answer that question today at noon.
Hey, Chris, not only are you a student of politics, but you are active in politics and always have been, including your tremendous work for our great hero of history, Tip O'Neill. So let me ask you this question in terms of the campaign going forward, if Joe Biden stays in this race. We had Steve Ratner on yesterday with a series of charts about the economy today compared to the economy 4 years ago. Job growth is up amazingly compared to 4 years ago. Wage growth is up amazingly compared to 4 years ago. There's a whole faction of numbers that prove that we have the best economy going in the world. Why is it that the Biden campaign thus far hasn't focused on 4 years ago when we were losing hundreds of Americans a day to COVID, and the president of the United States was saying, drink antifreeze or something to cure it, or it's going to go away as midsummer gets here. Why is it that the campaign isn't focusing on the differences between today and 4 years ago?
Well, I want to start with what you mentioned about Tip O'Neill. And as you know, I worked there for a half dozen years when he was really challenged by Ronald Reagan, a man who was really good on television. And yet Tip O'Neill, because he had a great staff, Kirk O'Donnell, Ari Weiss, and me, we pushed him out. He went on television. He went out there, and because he took on Reagan in a way that was for the little guy again, people gave him a 65% approval rating at the end. He was so right to go out there and meet with the public and meet with the press. I think these guys around Biden are not following that rule. You have to expose people. You have to let them look at you, let you see them with all the flaws you've got. Lincoln, the warts and all, he said. I want people to see it because then they decide they like you. And the reason people find they like a politician is they discover him or her. They learn who they are, and they see through all the flaws, and they said, he's a good guy. He's a guy. Trump's a bad guy. That's got to matter in the voting booth. He's a bad guy. You look at the way he treats people, women and everybody, the way he treats his cabinet members. He throws them out the window. He fires people with abandon, not just once in a while. He fires everybody. He's not good. He's charming sometimes. We all know that. But he's not a good guy. And I think in the end, after all the flaws and the mistakes, Biden will make him tonight, and everybody will jump on him and feed on him for 3-4 days. But the fact is, they'll see Joe Biden.
So, Chris, to your...
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.